Red Zone, Book 1, Wipeout Squad Audiobook Series. Chapter 14, The Queen's Effect. The metro tunnel stretched ahead like a throat trying to swallow them whole. Steele's boots pounded against cracked tile, his enhanced perception drawing probability lines through the crimson fog that showed nothing but death in every direction. Behind them, the broodmother's psychic screams still echoed, not fading, but intensifying, spreading across the network like ripples from a stone thrown into still water. "Breach!" Steele shouted into comms. "Tell me you've got something left to blow." "The charges we set earlier," Breach gasped, his wounded shoulder making every stride agony. "The fuel cells and oxygen canisters. I can trigger them remotely if we can get past the blast radius." Steele's HUD flickered. Hour 1703. "How far?" 50 meters minimum. Any closer and we're part of the fireworks." Hammer led their desperate charge, his sledgehammer clearing crawlers from their path with brutal efficiency. But the big man's movements were slowing. The combat stimulant was burning through his system faster than expected, and his acid burns were seeping through makeshift bandages. Each swing came a fraction of a second slower than the last. Contact left. Deadeye's empty rifle swung like a club, shattering a leaper's skull mid-leap. "They're coming from the service tunnels, dozens of them." Steele risked a glance at his tactical overlay. The metro side passages were vomiting mutants, crawlers, whisperers, things his enhanced vision couldn't categorize. All of them moving with terrifying coordination, all of them converging on the cleanup squad with singular purpose. The broodmother was directing them even as she bled out on her throne, using her dying moments to orchestrate their destruction. "There," Stitch pointed ahead through the fog. Steele saw it, a section of tunnel where the walls bulged with improvised charges, fuel cells and oxygen canisters strapped to support columns with det cord. Crude, but effective. "Breach, you sure those charges are still active?" "Only one way to find out." Breach fumbled with his remote detonator, his good hand shaking from exhaustion and pain. "Boss, I'm reading 60 meters to blast zone. We need to move faster." "Hammer, sprint," Steele ordered. "Everyone else on him. Wolf, if you fall, we're not stopping." The scientist nodded, his civilian hazmat suit covered in black ichor and torn in a dozen places. He was breathing the red fog now, had been for the past hour. The infection was taking root in his lungs with every gasp. They ran. 40 meters to the charges, 35. Behind them, the pursuing horde filled the tunnel like a living flood. Steele's enhanced hearing picked up the scrape of claws on stone, the wet click of mandibles, and beneath it all, a sound that made his blood run cold. Singing. The mutants were singing in stolen voices, a chorus of the dead, using words they'd harvested from fallen soldiers. Not coordinated speech, but fragments, pleas for help, cries of pain, last words meant for loved ones who would never hear them. All of it blending into a nightmarish choir. "Help me! God, help me!" "Sarah, I love you. Tell the kids." "They're in the walls. The puppeteer is in the walls." "Boss," Deadeye's voice was tight with horror. "That last one, that was Lieutenant Raven's voice. They're using her final transmission." Steele's jaw clenched. The network didn't just kill, it archived. Every scream, every prayer, every moment of human terror, preserved and weaponized. 20 meters, Breach called out. 10, clear the blast zone. They burst past the marked section of tunnel, and Steele's enhanced perception showed him the exact moment they crossed the threshold of safety. "Now, Breach, do it now!" The demolitions expert triggered his remote. For one terrible heartbeat, nothing happened. The charges remained silent, and Steele's mind raced through nightmare scenarios, corroded connections, dead batteries, signal interference from the psionic storm. Then, the tunnel became an inferno. The fuel cells detonated in sequence, each explosion triggering the next in a cascade of fire that raced backward through the metro. Superheated air expanded faster than sound, creating a pressure wave that lifted Steel off his feet and slammed him into the far wall. His ceramic armor absorbed most of the impact, but he still felt ribs creak and his shoulder blade protest. Through his helmet's audio dampeners, he heard the screams. Mutants caught in the fireball, their enhanced flesh no match for temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees. The stench was immediate and overwhelming. Burnt chitin, melted tissue, chemicals breaking down into toxic compounds. Sound off, Steel pushed himself up, his HUD cracked but functional. Everyone, sound off. Deadeye, I'm here. Ears ringing, but I'm here. Hammer, still breathing, barely. Breach, that was a good one, really good one. The demolitions expert's voice carried manic satisfaction despite his injuries. You see that secondary explosion? That was a fuel cell chain reaction. Beautiful. Stitch here. Wolf's down but alive. Checking him now. Steel staggered to where Stitch knelt over the scientist. Wolf's hazmat suit was scorched across the back. The fabric melted in places, but his vital signs on Stitch's scanner showed stable. He's unconscious, Stitch reported, his medic's hands checking for injuries with practiced efficiency despite their trembling. But he'll live. Can he walk? Not for a few minutes. We need to... The tunnel groaned. It wasn't a sound so much as a feeling, a deep, subsonic vibration that Steel felt through his boots, through his armor, through his bones. His enhanced perception drew lines showing stress fractures spreading through the ceiling, support columns cracking under impossible strain. The blast compromised the structure, Wolf said weakly, his eyes fluttering open. The metro system, it's old, pre-war construction. The heat differential from the explosion, it's causing catastrophic stress failure. Another groan, louder this time. Steel's HUD painted the tunnel in wireframe, showing him exactly how bad it was. The explosion had done more than kill mutants, it had fractured the metro's spine. And now, like dominoes, each damaged section was transferring load to the next, which failed and passed it on, creating a cascade that would bring down kilometers of tunnel. Move! Steel hauled Wolf to his feet, slinging the scientist's arm over his shoulder. Hammer, you're on point. Breach, Stitch, watch our flanks. Deadeye, rear guard. We need to reach the surface before this whole section collapses. They ran through a tunnel that was trying to eat itself. Behind them, the ceiling fell in massive chunks, creating a wall of debris that raced to catch them. Dust filled the air, mixing with the red fog to create a choking soup that defeated even their helmet filters. Left branch, Hammer shouted, pointing to a junction ahead. Emergency exit to surface level. I see daylight. Steel's enhanced vision confirmed it. A service ladder leading up to street level, barely visible through the churning dust and fog. But between them and salvation stood a problem. Cocoons. Dozens of them lined the walls around the ladder, pulsing with internal movement. And as the cleanup squad approached, they began to rupture, not gradually, but explosively. Larvae burst out like living shrapnel, thousands of them, filling the air with clicking mandibles and acid-tipped stingers. Through them, Steel roared. Don't stop, don't slow down. Hammer charged into the swarm like an armored bull. Larvae splashed against his chest plate, their acid eating into the ceramic coating, but he didn't slow. His sledgehammer swept left and right, crushing hundreds of the creatures with each swing. Steel felt them hit his armor, felt their acid burn through micro gaps in his seals. One found the wound on his neck where a flying larva had touched him earlier, burrowing into the partially healed flesh. Pain exploded across his nervous system, white-hot and all-consuming. Boss is hit! Stitch's hands were already moving, ripping the larva out with fingers that moved too fast to follow. The combat stimulant's residual effects gave him superhuman reflexes for a few more precious seconds. Hold still! No time! Steel pushed Stitch away, stumbling toward the ladder. Behind them, the tunnel was collapsing in earnest now, the ceiling caving in sections, walls cracking apart. Climb! Everyone climb! Deadeye went first, his enhanced reflexes carrying him up the ladder 3 rungs at a time. Stitch pushed Wolf ahead, supporting the scientist's weight while climbing one-handed. Breach followed, his ruined shoulder screaming protest but somehow functioning through sheer willpower. Steel and Hammer brought up the rear, batting away larvae that tried to follow them up the shaft. Above, Steel could see a metal grate, the exit to street level. Deadeye was already working to pry it open, his augmented strength bending metal that should have been immovable. That's when the radio erupted. Not with static, but with screaming. Hundreds of voices, thousands, all transmitting simultaneously on every frequency. Human voices, mutant voices, something in between. All of them crying out in shared agony. She's dying. Mother is dying. We feel her. All of us feel her. Pain. So much pain. The network is screaming. Find them, the killers. Find the ones who hurt Mother. Find them and become. Steele's enhanced perception suddenly expanded beyond his skull, beyond his body, beyond anything he'd experienced before. For one terrible moment, he felt what the network felt. The brood mother's death throes broadcasting across every psionic link on the planet. Thousands of mutants experiencing her death simultaneously, their collective consciousness reeling from the loss of a command node. The Queen's effect. Not just marking the killers for pursuit. Something deeper. Something worse. Every mutant on Keros 7 was synchronizing, their individual consciousnesses merging into a distributed intelligence that operated as a single vast organism. "Boss," Hammer's voice cut through the psychic overload. "Boss, you're bleeding from your ears. Steel." Steel blinked, and his vision cleared. His HUD showed hour 1741, but he'd lost minutes somewhere in the psionic storm. Blood was indeed trickling from his ears. The network's scream had been so powerful it had caused physical damage. I'm functional," Steel managed, though his words came out slurred. "Keep climbing." They burst through the street-level grate into Keros 7's perpetual red twilight. The city spread before them, a graveyard of civilization, but now every building, every street, every shadow held mutants, and all of them were perfectly still, watching, waiting, synchronized. "Oh God," Wolf breathed, his scanner painting impossible readings. "The psionic activity, it's off the scale. The entire network is operating as one organism now. No individual hunter-killer patterns, just one vast intelligence distributed across thousands of bodies." "How is that possible?" Breach demanded, cradling his shoulder. "The broodmother is dying. Shouldn't that disrupt the network?" "It's her final act," Wolf explained, his scientific mind working through horror to reach understanding. "She's burning out her remaining psionic energy to force a permanent synchronization. The Queen's effect isn't just marking us, it's creating a hive mind. Every mutant can see what every other mutant sees, feel what they feel. Know what they know." Steele's enhanced perception drew probability lines, and for the first time since his mutation had begun, every single one showed the same outcome: death. Not eventually, not probably, certainly. They couldn't hide. The network knew exactly where they were at all times, saw them through 1,000 eyes, heard them through 1,000 ears, smelled them through 1,000 nostrils. Stealth was impossible. Evasion was impossible. "How long until it's complete?" Steele asked, forcing his tactical mind to function through the psychic static. Wolf checked his scanner. "The synchronization it's already complete. Every mutant on this planet is now part of a single consciousness. They're not hunting us, they're hurting us, driving us toward..." He trailed off, studying his readings with growing horror. "Toward the Taurus, the mind-bender pit we saw in the vision. That's where the network wants us." "Why?" Stitch asked, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. "Because that's where the transformation is most efficient," Wolf said quietly. "The chorus can rewrite DNA in minutes instead of hours. They want to convert us, Add our tactical knowledge, our combat experience, our everything to the network's collective intelligence. Steele's HUD flickered. Hour 1749. Approximately 7 hours of suppressor protection remained. But with the accelerated infection from injuries, stimulants, and constant exposure to the fog, that estimate was optimistic at best. Behind them, in the metro tunnel, something collapsed with a sound like thunder. The entire section caved in, sealing off their escape route, and filling the air with dust. When it cleared, Steele saw movement in the ruins. Crawlers pulling themselves from the debris, wounded but alive, already moving to rejoin the hunt. And above, on every rooftop, in every window, standing in perfect formation across every street, the mutants watched. Thousands of them, all perfectly synchronized, all waiting for the command to close the trap. "Boss," Deadeye said quietly, his enhanced vision showing him details the others couldn't see. "On the rooftops, I'm seeing... Jesus Christ, I'm seeing people, human people, in cleanup armor, moving with the mutants." Steele felt his stomach drop. "Survivors? No." Deadeye's voice was hollow. "They're moving too perfectly. Same as the mutants, same synchronization. The network has converted other cleanup teams. They're part of the hive mind now. How many?" Steele forced himself to ask. "At least 2 full squads, maybe more." "Boss, if the network has their tactical knowledge, their equipment codes, their..." "I know," Steele cut him off. The implications were clear. Every security protocol, every extraction plan, every fallback position. If the network had consumed other cleanup teams, it knew all of it. His HUD timer jumped. Hour 1752. Then backward. Hour 1747. Forward. Hour 1755. The psionic interference was breaking down even the concept of time itself. "New plan," Steele announced, forcing decisiveness into his voice despite the mounting despair. "We don't go where they want us. We don't head for the evacuation corridor. We don't follow doctrine." "Then where?" Hammer asked, leaning heavily on his sledgehammer. Steele pulled up his tactical map, searching for anything the network wouldn't expect. His enhanced perception drew lines through possibilities, scenarios, probabilities. And there, a single thread of chance, so slim it barely registered. There, he pointed to a section of the city marked as a hazard zone even before the fall. The old industrial sector. Pre-war chemical plants, refineries, unstable infrastructure. The network's been avoiding it. Too many toxic compounds that interfere with biological processes. "You want us to go into a toxic waste zone?" Breach asked incredulously. "Boss, our suits are already compromised. We'll be breathing pure poison." "We're already breathing poison," Stitch countered, understanding Steele's logic. "At least in the industrial sector, the network can't follow in force. The chemical contamination will disrupt their coordination, maybe even damage their tissue." "It's suicide," Wolf said flatly. "Staying here is also suicide," Steele replied. "But this way, we choose how we die. On our feet, moving forward, making them pay for every meter. Or we can stand here and let them hurt us to their chorus." The team exchanged glances. Broken, exhausted, infected, but still human enough to make the choice. "Industrial sector it is," Hammer said, hefting his sledgehammer. "If I'm going to die, might as well do it poisoned and fighting." They moved out, leaving the collapsed metro behind. And as they walked, the mutants followed. Not attacking, not charging, just following with patient precision. Thousands of bodies, operated by a single vast intelligence that had all the time in the world. Steele's radio crackled one final time. Not screaming now, not chaos. Just a voice that was many voices, speaking with terrible unity. "We see you, Sergeant Steele. We feel you. The Queen's effect is complete. There is no escape. Only the choice between swift transformation or slow consumption. We will be patient. We will wait. And when your suppressors fail, we will welcome you home. The transition ended with a sound like laughter, if laughter could be made by 1,000 throats simultaneously. Steele checked his HUD one final time. Hour 17:58. The Queen's effect was complete. The hive mind was active, and they were marked prey in a city that had become a single predator. 7 hours until their suppressors fail. 15 kilometers to the evacuation corridor, and an entire planet hunting them with shared consciousness and perfect coordination. Move out, Steele ordered, his voice carrying more confidence than he felt. Fast march, we rest when we're dead. They disappeared into the red fog, heading towards toxins and poison, while behind them, the synchronized horde followed with patient, implacable certainty.
Thank you for listening. New chapters will be released daily on the channel. This audio material was produced exclusively for the Section 56 channel. All rights reserved.